Tonight, let the day loosen its grip. If your thoughts have been running like little wheels, turning, searching for something to solve, this is your soft place to set them down. Imagine that you're coming home to a room where the lights are low, the air is calm, and nothing is asking you to hurry. Maybe you're listening from a kitchen table after everyone else is asleep. Maybe you're curled up on a couch with a blanket that still holds the warmth of your own body. Maybe you're lying in bed, staring into the dark, letting the ceiling disappear. Where are you listening from tonight? Whatever your answer is, I'm glad you're here. In a moment, we'll walk, very slowly, toward a place that has been standing so long that even the idea of long begins to feel like a small word. But we won't chase secrets. We won't argue with the past. We will simply let it exist beside us like a calm companion. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Ancient Sleep Story. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. And if you'd like, answer this too, just quietly, to yourself. Do you prefer the story to be told as a leisurely stroll or a journey through time? Either way, we'll keep our pace unhurried. Either way, we'll move as gently as breath. So take a slow inhale and a softer exhale. Again, inhale as if you're breathing in warm lamplight, and exhale like letting a coat slide from your shoulders. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Good. Now imagine a wide desert night, not harsh, not empty, but quietly open like a dark ocean made of sand. Above it, the sky is clear, not bright in a loud way, but deep and spacious, filled with stars that don't sparkle so much as they rest. Somewhere far off, the modern world is still awake. Cars on roads, lights in windows, voices on screens. But those sounds are distant now, softened, as if you've closed a door. We're approaching the Giza Plateau. Behind us, Cairo becomes a soft constellation, streetlights and windows blinking at the edge of the desert. The city's hum is still there, but it thins as we move, like a radio fading when you step into another room. Ahead, the plateau feels simpler. Stone, sand, sky. In your imagination, notice an older hush rising from the ground, less like nothing, more like a steady presence. And somewhere beyond the dark, the Nile is flowing. You can't see it from here, but you can sense it as a pulse in the land. For thousands of years it has carried silt, boats, and ordinary lives right alongside these monuments. Tonight, we'll let that river guide lead us backward toward the first simple tombs, toward the first careful masons, toward the moment the shape of a pyramid becomes more than an idea. And at the edge of that journey, a gentle image waits. Someone, centuries later, brushing sand away from an already ancient monument, not to claim it, but to care for it. When we reach that moment, you'll feel how history can be a lullaby, slow, patient, and kind to tired minds after a long day. Not as tourists, not as detectives, just as gentle visitors arriving in the cool hour when the day's heat has finally let go. You can picture the ground beneath your feet, firm, gritty, the sand packed down from countless steps across centuries. You can picture the air, dry, clean, carrying the faint mineral scent of limestone, and you can picture a wind that moves slowly, not to disturb, but to soothe like a careful hand smoothing a sheet. Then ahead, the shape appears. At first, it's only a darker angle against the darker sky, a simple triangle, calm and certain. And then, as your eyes adjust, it becomes a presence, massive, quiet, unbothered by time. The Great Pyramid does not announce itself. It doesn't need to, it simply stands. There is a kind of comfort in that, something older than explanation. Because in our daily lives, so much is moving, so much changes, so much demands our attention. But here is something that does not rush, something that does not ask for your opinion, something that has endured through storms of history the way a mountain endures weather. And as you draw closer, you begin to notice the texture of the stones. Not dramatic, not theatrical, just real, layer upon layer of limestone blocks, each one with its own quiet surface, its own pale memory. You might imagine reaching out your hand, not to claim the monument, but to sense it. Your palm meets the stone and feels a coolness that seems to come from deep inside the earth. The surface is not perfectly smooth, but it's steady like a calm truth. In that small contact, something in you slows, because the body understands texture, it understands cool stone, it understands weight and stability. And when you meet stability, your nervous system listens. This is where our story begins. With a simple question, gentle as a candle in a dark room. If there were a place that knew how to be silent longer than human memory, what might it teach us without using words? We don't need an answer tonight. We only need the feeling of the question like a soft ripple across still water. Now, to make this journey more tender, let's carry 6 little guides with us, like lanterns that don't glare. Who are we in this story? We are a listener and a narrator walking together. No one is alone here. What are we doing? We are letting an ancient place calm the modern mind. Where are we? On the plateau at Giza, near Cairo, where desert meets river-fed life. When are we? In the present night, with a slow door opening into deep time, back toward the 4th dynasty, and even earlier in the imagination. Why are we here? Not to prove anything, but to feel the long continuity of human hands, human hopes, and human care. How will we travel? By noticing, by breathing, by letting images arrive gently like a dream that doesn't force itself. And with those lanterns in hand, we can step a little closer, close enough to see a detail that doesn't shout but whispers. At the base, where a few original casing stones remain, the joints are so precise that light barely finds a way into them. It's the kind of precision that makes you quiet, not because it's restless, but because it's beautiful. Stone meeting stone, no mortar needed, just patient fitting, as if someone once believed that even the smallest gap mattered. And this is where the mind might want to sprint toward numbers, toward arguments, toward the urgency of how did they do it? But tonight, we take a kinder road. We let the wonder be simple. Somewhere near your rib cage, your breathing stays slow. Somewhere behind your eyes, the muscles soften, and you realize that the pyramid's greatest gift is not a riddle. It is a rhythm of endurance, a rhythm of standing still. Now imagine we step away from the open plateau and drift like a slow camera into a different kind of quiet, the Cairo Museum. Not crowded, not bright, not bustling, at least not in our dream of it tonight. In our story, it is late. The lights are gentle, filtered through glass. The rooms are cool. Footsteps are soft, respectful. And behind a pane of glass, under careful light, there is a statue carved from diorite, a stone so hard that it feels like time itself decided to become solid. Its surface is polished, calm, almost reflective. The face is steady. The lines are precise. You don't need to know every name, but you can feel the message. Human hands once worked stone with extraordinary care. And when you realize that, another thought arrives, softly. In our modern lives, we are used to progress. We expect things to get better with practice. We assume mastery comes after many attempts, many mistakes, many prototypes. But at Giza, the story seems to breathe differently. The earliest Great Pyramid stands with a kind of finished confidence, and later pyramids, though still impressive, often seem smaller, less precise, more dependent on simpler methods. That pattern doesn't have to frighten you, it doesn't have to become a debate, it can simply be a tender curiosity, like finding an old handwritten letter in a drawer and noticing how elegant the handwriting is, how careful, how practiced, before you've even learned who wrote it. So tonight, we will hold that curiosity gently. We will not tighten our fists around it, we will let it rest in open hands, because sometimes the most healing way to be with the past is not to conquer it, but to keep it company. And the pyramid, in its long stillness, seems to invite exactly that. It invites you to become a custodian of calm, to protect a quiet space inside yourself, the way generations protected stone from sand. As we return from the museum into the open night again, you can picture the sky above Giza, stars turning slowly like a distant clock. You can picture the sand, cooler now, settled. You can picture the pyramid, still there, still steady, still unhurried. In a moment, we will begin our gentle journey through time. We'll walk back through Egypt's early dynasties, through the slow shaping of a landscape, through the patient work of hands and seasons. We'll notice the Nile's presence, the shift of climates, the way the desert was not always a desert. But we won't rush there yet. For now, let this be enough. A night, sky, a breath, a stone that does not hurry, and the feeling that you too are allowed to slow down. So once more, take an easy inhale and let the exhale lengthen as if the air is carrying you downward deeper into comfort. And when you're ready, we'll take the first step, backward through time, one quiet century at a time. The night around Giza feels different when you let your imagination linger, not dramatic, just spacious. And even if you're still in your own room, you can borrow that spaciousness. You can let it widen inside you the way a quiet hallway widens when the doors are closed and the house is asleep. So listen as if you're listening to a distant tide. We are on the plateau now. The desert is not only sand, it is stone, dust, and time, settled into a calm surface that holds footprints for a moment, then slowly lets them go. Above us, the stars are scattered like steady pins of light. They do not shout, they do not hurry, they simply remain. Below those stars, the pyramids hold their shapes, not perfect in the way of machines, but perfect in the way of mountains, earned, weathered, present. If you'd like to soften even more, try this. On your next exhale, imagine the weight of the day sliding down your spine like warm water. Let the shoulders sink, let the jaw unclench, let the forehead smooth as if a gentle hand has passed over it. Good. Now the scene becomes full of small sensations. There is the faint mineral scent of limestone. There is the whisper of sand shifting in quiet drifts. There is the coolness that rises from stone after sunset, as if the ground has stored a little pocket of night for you to touch. You can almost hear your own footsteps in the mind, soft crunch, a rhythm that asks nothing from you. In the distance, beyond the dark edge of the plateau, Cairo's lights glow like a low constellation. The city is awake somewhere far behind us, and yet it feels politely distant, like a neighbor's conversation muffled by a wall. Here, the world is older, and the Great Pyramid is not alone. Nearby, the Pyramid of Khafra stands with its own calm silhouette. Not far, the smaller Pyramid of Menkaure rests like a quieter echo. 3 shapes, 3 shadows, 3 reminders that human beings once decided to speak to the sky in the language of stone. Yet the plateau is also full of things that are easy to miss when you only look for the giant triangles. Low walls, broken blocks. Foundations of temples, traces of causeways that once guided slow processions across this open land. Most of the past was not a parade of grand moments. Most of it was ordinary days. Hands lifting and carrying, voices calling measurements, water jars clinking softly, meals taken in shade, dust on eyelashes, the quiet relief of lying down when the work ended. If you're listening tonight with your own tired hands, hands that held a steering wheel, a keyboard, a phone, a tool, let that detail comfort you. Even the builders of wonders had evenings. They had sore backs, they had small jokes, small kindnesses, small silences between tasks. History becomes gentler when we remember that. Now let the camera of the mind move slowly along the base of the Great Pyramid. The ground is uneven with stone fragments and sand. A few remaining casing stones at the bottom catch a faint hint of light, and their smoothness feels almost unreal, like pale ice in the desert. The joints between stones are so careful that you can imagine sliding a thin sheet of paper and feeling it stop. Not because of force, because of exactness. Your mind may want to sprint toward numbers. How many stones? How heavy? How precise? But tonight we take a kinder road. We let wonder stay simple. We let the feeling of precision become an easing, not a problem to solve. As we lift our gaze up the face of the pyramid, the layers step inward toward a point we can't quite see in the dark. The top is hidden, but the shape is implied. Your mind completes the triangle the way it completes the last note of a lullaby. And above the stone, always above, the sky. People long ago watched this same sky, from boats on the Nile, from fields, from rooftops, from this plateau with dust in their hair and calluses on their palms. They noticed patterns. They noticed that certain lights returned at certain seasons. They noticed that the river rose and fell like a living breath. Their world was a rhythm, and that rhythm is one of the quiet bridges between them and us. Because even now, in a modern life full of schedules and screens, your body still lives by cycles: breath in, breath out, tension, release, wakefulness, sleep. Tonight we choose release. If you want, ask yourself a small question that doesn't need a fast answer. What part of your day is ready to be forgiven? Not fixed, just forgiven. Let it pass, the way a cloud passes across a calm moon. Now the story turns gently toward time. Imagine time as a long, quiet hallway. We walk backward along it in bare feet. Each step is soft. Each step is slow. We begin near the 4th dynasty, the age when this pyramid rose. The name Khufu appears here like a small carved sign, not an argument, not a conclusion, just a marker in the dimness. A human being lived under that name. A court existed. Workers gathered. Stone moved. Plans were spoken. Songs were sung to keep hands in rhythm. And then, after the last block settled into place, the pyramid began doing what it does best. It stood still. Now, thousands of years later, it feels less like a trophy and more like a presence. It doesn't brag. It doesn't insist. It simply holds the night. If you have ever built anything that took patience, anything you tended quietly, you understand this. Sometimes what matters is not applause. It is steadiness. We walk back further and we see earlier monuments where the pyramid idea is still learning its own balance. Shapes shift, angles adjust, stone becomes more certain with time. You don't have to memorize anything, just let the images pass by like lanterns along a road. Earlier still, the story becomes humbler. Mastabas, low rectangular tombs, sit in the sand like short, clear sentences, simple forms, practical forms, quiet forms. And in that simplicity, a soothing truth appears. Greatness is often built from small, patient steps. It's the same in your life. No one heals in one dramatic moment. Peace is more like a path you return to again and again until it becomes familiar beneath your feet. Now let's shift toward the river. Even from Giza, the Nile feels near enough to sense as a pulse in the land. Imagine standing close to it at night. The air cools, insects sing softly. Water moves with a calm confidence, as if it has nowhere urgent to be. If your mind is used to bracing, planning, racing ahead, let the river teach you a different pace. Not careless, just calm. Now we drift even farther back, beyond dynasties, beyond kings, into an older layer of the landscape. There was a time when the Sahara was not the Sahara you imagine today. A time of wider rains, greener stretches, and water held in places that are dry now. You don't have to argue with this, just let it be dreamlike. Imagine the smell of damp earth after rain. Imagine the sound of water where today there is only sand. Human beings lived through those changes. They watched the sky. They watched the land transform. They adapted and then adapted again. And through all of it, they carried the same quiet needs we carry: safety, belonging, rest. Now come back with me to the plateau. The pyramids remain, dark against the stars. But our relationship to them has changed. We are not here to prove anything. We are here to listen. And that brings us to a gentle puzzle, one that isn't meant to wake you, only to soften your curiosity. The ancient Egyptians recorded so much: names, offerings, journeys, lists. And yet when it comes to the Great Pyramid, there is a strange hush. Not a clear instruction manual preserved for us, not a neat blueprint waiting in a drawer, just fragments, an absence. It's like standing in a library and finding one shelf empty. Not alarming, just quietly intriguing. And in that empty space, your mind does not need to run. It can rest. Because sometimes what survives is not the explanation. Sometimes what survives is the presence. Stone, shape, shadow, silence. Centuries after the pyramid was built, it was already ancient. Sand drifted, blocks loosened, temples softened into ruin. Time did what time does, and then, in a later age, a man walked among these older monuments with a different devotion. Not the devotion of building new wonders, but the devotion of restoring what was already old. In our story, his name is Khaemwaset, a prince and a caretaker. Imagine him at dawn when the desert is pale and the sky is tender. Imagine workers brushing sand away from a buried stone. Not with triumph, with patience. He does not say, "Look what I made." He says without words, "Look what I saved." And that is a twist so gentle it feels like a lullaby. Maybe the greatest mystery is not who built these monuments, but who kept them from disappearing. In a world that constantly urges you to produce, to prove, to perform, this is an idea that can heal, to preserve, to maintain, to keep something good alive. If you notice your eyes heavy, let them. The story will keep walking even if you drift, like a lantern carried by wind. Take one more slow breath with me. Inhale, as if you're gathering cool desert air. Exhale, as if you're letting sand settle onto a wide, quiet surface. In the next part, we will step closer to the interior, into shadowed passageways where sound becomes a whisper and light becomes a careful thing. We will walk as if we are entering the Earth's own memory. And somewhere ahead, in the dimness, a new kind of silence will meet us, deep, steady, and strangely kind. If you're still awake enough to notice, you might feel how the story itself is slowing, like a dimmer switch gently turning the world down. And if you're already drifting, that's perfect too. You don't have to hold every sentence. You can let them pass over you the way night air passes over skin. Tonight, we step closer to the Great Pyramid, not to conquer it, not to solve it, but to enter its quiet the way you might step into a stone chapel or a long closed room and feel your voice lower on its own. Imagine the entrance as a modest cut in the vast geometry. Not grand, not theatrical, just a small opening where shadow collects. The desert wind is outside, brushing sand across the plateau in patient little strokes. But at the threshold, the air changes, it cools, it becomes still. And as we move inward, the sounds of the open night fade behind us. Cairo's distant pulse, the wide breathing of the desert, even the faint whisper of wind. Inside, everything is softened into a hush that feels thicker, as if silence here has weight. Your footsteps, if we imagine them, become careful. A slow scrape, a gentle shift. In the dark, stone seems to listen. If you'd like, take a slow inhale now. And as you exhale, imagine the inside of your chest becoming a quiet corridor too, cool, spacious, safe, a place where thoughts can echo once and then settle. The first passage slopes down. It is narrow enough to make you aware of your own body, but not in a frightening way. More like being wrapped in a heavy blanket, contained, protected. The walls are limestone, the ceiling presses close overhead. When you touch the stone with your fingertips, it feels dry and calm, as if it has been storing the night for thousands of years. In the imagination there is light, just enough. Not bright beams, not harsh flashlights, a gentle glow like lamplight reflected off pale rock. It falls in small pools along the floor, leaving the corners soft and kind. We move slowly because there is no reason to rush. The pyramid has been waiting. It can wait a little longer. There is something deeply soothing about this interior world. It is uncomplicated. There are no notifications here, no loud choices, no urgent decisions, just stone, slope, breath. And along the way, you might notice a strange comfort in the idea of construction as patience. Somewhere above and around these corridors, millions of stones rest, stacked and balanced, holding their weight in quiet cooperation. They do not argue, they do not fidget, they simply bear and be born. Sometimes when life feels heavy, we forget that weight can be shared. We forget that we are allowed to lean. But a structure like this whispers a different truth. If the foundation is steady, the load becomes quieter. The corridor opens into a place that feels larger, not by much, but enough for the mind to unclench. There is the grand gallery ahead, rising like a long throat of stone. When you first see it, you might feel your breath catch, not in alarm, but in awe that remains gentle. The walls climb upward at an angle, stepping inward, layer by layer. The floor is a narrow channel, and along the sides are ledges that feel like ribs. This space is not decorated, it is not crowded with symbols. It is simply precise, deliberate, shaped. And in the stillness you can hear, if you listen closely, the quietest sound of all, your own breathing. Inhale, exhale. A soft tide in a stone ocean. This is one of the most tender gifts of ancient places. They return you to your body. They remind you that you are not only a mind. You are a breath, a pulse, a warm animal resting inside a long day. As we stand here, allow the image of the night sky above to remain with you, even though we are deep inside stone. The stars are still turning, the earth is still moving, time is still flowing. But inside, the flow feels slowed, like water entering a quiet pool. Now a gentle thought arrives, one that doesn't demand solving. The ancient Egyptians wrote so much, and yet the pyramid's inner story remains partly unspoken. We have corridors, we have chambers, we have marks left by crews, we have fragments of daily labor. But the complete why and how, neatly explained in a single, preserved scroll, is not here. Instead, there is this: a design that exists even when the words are absent. And maybe that is the point. Not everything meaningful comes with a manual. Not every act of care is explained. Sometimes love is just something you do quietly until it becomes visible in what remains. If you're someone who overthinks at night, someone whose mind wants to gather every loose end, let the pyramid offer you permission. You can rest without finishing the puzzle. You can sleep without closing every open tab in your mind. We continue upward, slowly, toward the king's chamber. The air stays cool and dry. The walls hold their calm. There is a sense of moving through a deliberate sequence, like a slow piece of music where each note is placed with care. At last, the chamber opens, a rectangular room made of granite, darker and denser than limestone, as if the earth has concentrated its patience here. The granite blocks are heavy, quiet, and their surfaces seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. In this room, the silence feels even deeper, not empty, but full, like the pause between two heartbeats, and there, simple and stark, is the stone sarcophagus. No carvings, no decoration, just a box of stone, resting in the quiet, waiting like a thought you don't need to chase. It is easy to imagine the mind trying to fill this emptiness with drama, but tonight we will not. Tonight, the emptiness is soothing, because emptiness is not always lack. Sometimes it is space, sometimes it is the gentle room you needed all along. Somewhere on the stone, if you look with the gentlest attention, you can imagine a mark, faint, ordinary, almost tender. Not a royal inscription, not a prophecy, just a practical sign left by a crew, a name, a tally, a stroke of pigment that once meant, we were here. We did our part. It's easy to forget that the hands behind great monuments were not made of myth. They were people who woke up, ate bread, lifted loads, drank water, laughed, worried, grew tired, and went home to sleep. In that sense, the pyramid is not only a symbol of power, it is also a quiet archive of human routine. If your days have been heavy lately, notice how the pyramid's interior offers a different kind of schedule. Step, pause, breathe, and rest. Nothing here demands speed. You might also imagine the sound inside these corridors, how it changes with each small movement. A soft scrape becomes a whisper that lingers. A breath becomes a faint echo that returns to you like reassurance. The stone does not amplify panic, it amplifies presence. Let that be a small practice for your own night. If a worry comes, let it echo once, and then let it fade. If a memory rises, let it pass like a slow lantern down a hallway. If your mind tries to pull you into tomorrow, bring it back to this. Inhale, exhale, cool air, quiet stone, safe, dark. Tonight you don't have to be brilliant. You only have to be here now. Now let's allow a soft discovery to arise. Something that feels like a candle in the corner, not a spotlight. Above this chamber, hidden from ordinary sight, are relieving chambers, spaces built to distribute the tremendous weight of stone overhead. They are not meant to be visited by kings in ceremony. They are meant to do a quiet job, to keep the roof from crushing the room below. Think about that. Even in a monument built for eternity, there are unseen parts whose purpose is simply to protect. Invisible architecture of care. And isn't that the way much of life works too? The most important supports are often the ones no one applauds, the friend who checks in softly, the routine that steadies you, the meal you make for yourself when you're tired, the boundary you set that nobody notices but you. In the darkness of this chamber, you might feel grateful for the supports in your own life, or you might realize you need more of them. Either way, you do not have to solve it tonight. Just notice, and let the noticing be gentle. Now we step back slowly, the way you would leave a quiet room in your own home without turning on bright lights. We move down the grand gallery again, the stone ribs descend, the corridor narrows, the air remains cool. And as we return toward the entrance, another soft idea forms, one that turns the story without jolting you. What if the greatest marvel is not the mystery of the builders, but the patience of the keepers? The ones who patched, restored, brushed away sand, recorded what they could, and let the monument continue. The pyramid is not only a product of one era, it is a collaboration across centuries, builders, caretakers, travelers, historians, and even listeners like you, carrying its quiet into the night. Outside, the desert wind continues its slow work. Sand moves like time, stars keep turning. Cairo hums softly in the distance, and you, here in your own room, can take what you need from this place. Not an answer, but a steadiness. So let your eyelids grow heavier if they want to. Let your breath lengthen. Let your shoulders sink. In the next part, we will step outward again to the plateau and follow the river's memory, how stone, water, and climate shape what humans build, and how the past sometimes leaves gentle clues in the way it has been weathered. For now, rest in the cool corridor of your own breath. Inhale and exhale. We step out of the pyramid again as if we're leaving a cool, quiet room in our own home. The night air meets our skin. It feels a little lighter, a little wider. Somewhere the desert wind moves with the gentlest patience, and the stars remain exactly where they should be, steady, unhurried, unconcerned. If you're listening with your eyes half closed, let them stay that way. You can follow this journey like you follow distant music, softly, without needing to see every note. Outside, the plateau is open again. The pyramids hold their silhouettes. The stone underfoot feels calm, older than any worry that came with your day. And far beyond the edge of the desert, the Nile continues its quiet work, flowing through the dark like a ribbon of memory. Tonight, we let that river guide us, not with urgency, but with tenderness, into a thought that feels like a warm hand on the back of the mind. The landscape was not always what it is now. If you've ever returned to a childhood street and felt startled by how different it looks, you already understand. Places change, trees grow, buildings rise, colors fade, roads widen. And still, beneath all the changes, something familiar remains, an underlying shape, a quiet continuity. The Sahara, too, has lived more than one life. There were seasons in the deep past when rains were more generous, when grasses and shrubs held the soil, when lakes and wetlands existed, where today there is only dust. You don't need the exact dates tonight, just the feeling that the earth, like a human being, has chapters, some drier, some greener, some louder, some quiet. Imagine for a moment the desert not as a blank, but as a page that has been written on, erased, and written on again. In that imagined, greener time, the air might have carried a different scent, damp earth after rain, plants warmed by sun, water pooled in shallow basins where birds gathered. The wind would have sounded softer then, moving through grasses rather than over bare sand. The night would have been filled with different small voices, frogs, insects, the distant call of animals. And humans were there too, not as myths, not as strangers, but as ordinary people living close to weather. They watched the sky, they followed water, they learned where to find shade, they learned what the land offered and what it took away. Sometimes, when modern life feels overwhelming, it helps to remember that our nervous systems were shaped in worlds like that. Worlds where survival meant noticing subtle changes, a cloud, a breeze, a scent of rain, the difference between a safe path and a risky one. No wonder your mind is alert at night. It is doing what minds were built to do: scan, predict, prepare. But here, beside the pyramids, we can let that ancient alertness soften. We can let it become something gentler. Awareness without worry. So breathe in and breathe out, as if you're teaching your body that for this hour, it is safe. Now we turn our attention to something nearby, another stone presence at Giza that has watched the sky for a very long time: the Sphinx. In the dark, you can imagine it as a low, sleeping lion with a human face resting in the sand as if it belongs to the boundary between waking and dreaming. Its gaze is not sharp tonight, it is calm. The stone of it has been worn by wind, by sun, by time, and by the hands of people who came later, trying to protect what they inherited. If you walk around it in your mind, you may notice how its body holds the marks of weathering, softened edges, grooves, areas that look as though the stone has been gently, repeatedly touched. And here comes a soft discovery, one we will hold with care, like a fragile shell picked up from the shore. Some researchers have looked at certain patterns of erosion on the Sphinx and the surrounding enclosure, and wondered whether water once played a stronger role here than we usually imagine. Not a sudden catastrophe, not a dramatic flood story, just the quiet idea that in a wetter period, rainfall and runoff could have shaped the rock in ways that differ from wind-blown sand alone. It is not a settled certainty, and it doesn't need to be tonight. Think of it as a conversation the Earth is having with attentive eyes, a hypothesis offered, debated, reconsidered, revised, the kind of thing that belongs to daylight seminars and careful fieldwork. But for our nighttime story, we take only the gentle image, the possibility of ancient rain. Imagine it, a night like this, but with clouds gathered above, a soft, steady rainfall over the plateau, water tracing paths down stone, collecting in small channels, darkening the limestone as it goes. The sound would have been a hush upon a hush, rain on rock, rain on sand, rain on the sleeping back of the Sphinx. If you let your mind hear it, you might feel your own body relax. Rain does that. It doesn't ask questions, it doesn't demand decisions, it simply falls and the world accepts it. And in that acceptance, we find another tender truth. History is not only written by people, it is written by weather, by rivers, by seasons, by long patterns that move quietly through centuries, the way breath moves through the night. When we think of the pyramids, we often think of human intention, design, labor, power, belief. But the monuments have also been shaped by the slow hands of nature. Sand has buried and revealed them. Heat has expanded stone. Cold has tightened it. Wind has polished edges. Occasional moisture has left subtle traces. Time has been an artist too, patient, invisible, persistent. Sometimes the most comforting way to see your own life is similar. You are not only the sum of decisions and plans, you are also shaped by seasons, by environments, by what you lived through, by the quiet weather of your days. If tonight you feel tired in a deep way, you might whisper to yourself, "Of course, I have been moving through my own climate." Now let's return to the Great Pyramid for a moment, but from the outside again, as if we are circling it like a slow moon around a steady planet. Notice how the pyramid does not need to defend its meaning. It simply holds its geometry. It holds its silence. And that silence becomes a kind of mirror. Whatever you bring to it, curiosity, grief, wonder, exhaustion, it receives without judgment. There is a reason ancient places can feel healing. They shrink the ego without crushing it. They remind us that we are small, yes, but also connected to something vast. And in that connection, your personal worries can loosen, not because they don't matter, but because they do not have to be carried alone. If you want to, you can place one worry into the sand beside the pyramid. Imagine it like a small stone you've been holding in your pocket all day. Set it down. Feel your hand lighten. You can pick it up tomorrow if you need to. Tonight, you're allowed to rest. Maybe you can picture your worry dissolving the way a footprint softens overnight. The wind crosses it, the grains settle, and the mark becomes smooth again. What would it feel like if your thoughts could be smoothed that way too, tonight, gently? Now we drift like a gentle camera toward the river again. The Nile is the quiet heartbeat behind so much of Egypt's story. It rises and falls in seasonal rhythm, leaving fertile silt, feeding crops, carrying boats. It is easy to imagine ancient workers and travelers moving along it in the evening, hearing water lap against reeds, watching the last light turn the surface into bronze. In our story, we don't need to list names or dates. We only need to feel the human scene, a boat gliding, oars dipping, voices low, the scent of wet wood and river plants. Someone points at the stars, someone speaks of home, someone falls silent, listening to the water. And far away on the plateau, the pyramids wait, still, massive, quiet, as if they are anchored not only in stone, but in the rhythm of the river itself. Here is another soft turn, almost like a sigh. If the pyramid is a letter written in stone, perhaps the river is the breath that carried that letter forward through time. And if the letter has no signature, we can read clearly. That may be part of its grace. The writer is less important than the message: patience, endurance, continuity, care. Because when you remove the hunger for certainty, you make room for something gentler: gratitude. Gratitude for the hands that lifted blocks. Gratitude for the hands that repaired what time damaged. Gratitude for the quiet minds that measured the sky with curiosity rather than fear. Gratitude for the simple fact that across thousands of nights, humans have looked up at the same stars and longed for peace. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Only when you're ready, only if it feels good. Sometimes naming a gentle memory is like lighting a small lamp in the mind. And remember, here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. As we stay on the plateau, the wind moves again, not stronger, just present. It slides along stone and sand like a slow hand smoothing a sheet. Somewhere a grain of sand lifts, travels, settles. Somewhere a star shifts by a degree too small to notice. Somewhere the river continues, and you, in your own room, can let yourself become part of that same rhythm, slow, steady, safe. In the next part, we will follow a caretaker's footsteps more closely, how later generations looked at these monuments and chose preservation over pride, and how that choice can teach a tired modern heart a quieter kind of strength. For now, breathe. And let the desert remember water, and let your mind remember rest. The desert night has a way of making every thought feel a little larger. But the plateau teaches another lesson. Even the largest things can be held quietly. If you're still awake enough to notice your own body, let it soften again. Let the tongue rest behind the teeth. Let the shoulders fall. Let the hands unclench as if they've finally remembered they are allowed to be empty. We are still at Giza, still under the slow wheel of stars, still surrounded by stone that has learned how to wait. And tonight, instead of asking who first lifted these blocks, we turn toward a gentler question, one that does not provoke the mind, but calms it. Who kept them here? Because between the moment a monument is finished and the moment you and I arrive, there is a long middle distance. Centuries of weather, sand, politics, neglect, devotion, curiosity, and care. History is rarely a straight line. It is more like a tide. It advances, it retreats, it returns again. In that returning, caretakers appear, not always famous, not always celebrated. Sometimes their work is so quiet that it becomes invisible, as if the monument simply survived on its own. But it didn't, not entirely. Imagine the plateau in a different age, long after Khufu's builders are gone, long after the great ceremonies have faded into dust. The pyramid still stands, yes, but sand has crept in where footsteps once moved freely. Stone chips and fragments lie scattered like broken shells. A temple wall slumps. A causeway disappears beneath drifting dunes. The desert is patient. It never attacks. It only arrives, grain by grain, until absence looks natural. And then one morning, at the edge of that slow disappearance, a human decision interrupts the drift. A prince comes to the plateau. His name in our story is Khaemwaset, often remembered as a restorer, a caretaker of ancient monuments, someone who looked at the past not as a rival, but as an inheritance. You don't need to hold every detail about him tonight. Just hold the image, a man walking among stones that are already old to him. He arrives at dawn when the desert is pale and cool, when the sky is still a soft blue-grey and the sun has not yet sharpened the edges of things. The air smells clean, mineral, quiet. The wind is gentler at this hour, as if it too is waking slowly. Khaemwaset does not come with loud triumph. He comes with attention. And attention is a kind of love. He sees sand piled against a carved surface. He sees a name half buried. He sees that time has been doing what time does, loosening, eroding, forgetting. And in that moment he chooses an act that is both humble and immense. He chooses to preserve. Imagine workers with simple tools, brushes, baskets, hands. Imagine the sound of sand being lifted and poured aside like a soft waterfall. Imagine the steady rhythm of care, scoop, shake, sweep, pause, breathe, scoop again. There is no drama here, only patience. And as the sand falls away, stone reappears. The past returns not with a shout, but with a quiet reveal, like a photograph developing slowly in dim light. This is the soft discovery of tonight. Sometimes the most powerful human act is not building something new, but keeping something good from disappearing. If your own life has felt like a series of tasks lately, like you are always being asked to produce and prove, let this idea soothe you. Preservation is also a form of creation. Maintenance is also a form of meaning. There is dignity in holding what matters steady. Khaemwaset walks among monuments that were ancient before his own grandmother was born. He does not feel threatened by their age. He does not need to compete. He simply feels responsible. And that responsibility is a quiet kind of strength. You may recognize it. You felt it when you paid a bill on time, even though nobody thanked you. When you cleaned a kitchen late at night, so the morning would feel kinder. When you checked on a friend with a simple message, just to keep the bond alive. When you kept going through a hard season, not heroically, but steadily. Care is rarely loud, but care is what keeps the world from unraveling. If your mind begins to wander, let it wander the way sand wanders, without urgency. Picture a small lamp placed on the ground beside you, its light low and steady. Picture your breath moving in that light, as if the air itself is warm. And if a thought arrives about tomorrow, about yesterday, imagine it as a bird passing overhead. You can watch it cross the sky, and you can let it go. No need to follow it any further. On the plateau, the sun rises higher. Light spills across limestone. Shadows shrink. The pyramid's face brightens in slow layers. In the distance, the river glints, silver turning toward gold. And in this brightening, Khaemwaset's work continues calm as breath. He might pause sometimes, letting his palm rest on stone, the way we did earlier in our imagination. He might feel the coolness in the morning, the texture beneath his fingertips, the fine dust clinging to his skin. He might sense a strange companionship with builders long gone, hands across time, connected by the same material. Stone does that. It makes time feel like a room, not a cliff. Now let the story widen, because caretaking is not only about monuments, it is also about memory. There is a difference between knowledge and memory. Knowledge can be written in neat lines. Memory is often felt, like a scent, a rhythm, a familiar quiet. Knowledge tries to explain, memory tries to keep. And in the case of the Great Pyramid, so much of what we have feels like memory rather than a complete explanation. We have traces, a route, a stone, a mark, a corridor. We have names of crews and fragments of logistics. We have the shape itself, certain, silent, enduring. But there is no single, perfectly preserved how-to scroll placed in our hands. That absence can make the modern mind restless. It can tempt us to fill the space with noise. Tonight, we do something kinder. We treat the absence as a kind of sanctuary, a pause that allows imagination to breathe. In that pause, we can ask a gentler question. What if some things survive best when they are not over-explained? A lullaby does not need footnotes. A sunset does not need a manual. A long breath does not need a debate. Sometimes meaning is not something you solve. It is something you sit beside till your body calms. If you'd like to deepen that calm, try this. On the next exhale, imagine you are setting all your unfinished thoughts on a stone ledge, like placing books back on a shelf. They will still be there tomorrow. Tonight, they do not need your hands. Now back to Khemweset. He is not alone. Around him are workers, scribes, helpers, ordinary people who will go home at night, eat simple food, laugh, worry, and sleep. They are not thinking in terms of legacy. They are thinking in terms of steady tasks, and yet their steady tasks become legacy without them trying. That is another soft truth. The future is built by ordinary afternoons. The sun moves, the day warms, the wind picks up slightly. A few grains of sand skitter across the ground like tiny insects. Somewhere a bird crosses the sky, a dark comma against bright blue. The pyramid remains, and Khemweset's work, small in each moment, adds up to something enormous, continuity. Now imagine this same scene folding forward through time like pages turning slowly. Another generation comes, they see what was preserved, they repair a crack, they clear a path, they record a name, they add their own quiet layer of care, then another and another, until finally we arrive, modern visitors, modern listeners, with modern minds that are often tired from too much input, too many choices, too many alarms. And somehow the pyramid still stands to offer its gift, steadiness. This is where the story reaches toward you most directly. Because even if you never travel to Egypt, even if you never touch limestone with your own hand, you can still practice the pyramid's lesson in your own life. Choose one thing to preserve. It might be your sleep routine, it might be a friendship, it might be a gentle habit like drinking water slowly in the morning, or stepping outside for air, or keeping one corner of your home calm and uncluttered. These are not small things, they are the architecture of peace. So here is a quiet question, offered like a soft blanket. What is one small thing you want to keep, simply because it makes life kinder? You don't have to answer out loud, you can just let the question settle. And if tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, something you've been keeping quietly, feel free to share it below, only when it feels natural. Sometimes naming a memory is like brushing sand away from a carving. It returns, clear and warm. And remember, here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. As the plateau cools again in our imagination, the day's heat drains from stone. The sky deepens. Stars reappear one by one like quiet listeners arriving. The pyramid becomes a dark triangle again, steady against the night. And somewhere in that darkness, the idea of caretaking becomes even softer, less like work, more like mercy. Because mercy is also preservation. Forgiveness is also maintenance. Rest is also a kind of repair. In the next part, we will follow one delicate thread of human record, how a small, practical diary can survive across millennia and offer a glimpse of ordinary labor. Not a blueprint, not a grand proclamation, just the quiet voice of someone doing their job day by day near the river. For now, let your breath be the caretaker. Inhale and exhale, and let the night keep you. Stay with your breath for a moment. Even if the day has left small knots in your thoughts, even if sleep still feels a little far away, you don't have to push. You can simply float the way a leaf floats on slow water, carried, not forced. Tonight, we follow a thread that is surprisingly gentle, not a king's proclamation, not a monument's thunder, just a working man's ordinary record, thin as papyrus, quiet as a whisper. Imagine the Nile again in the hour before sunrise. The river is dark and smooth, a long mirror that holds the last stars. The air is cool. The reeds along the banks sway softly. Somewhere, a bird calls once, then goes quiet. A small boat rests near the shore. Wooden planks creak. A lantern glows low. No harsh flame, only a warm pocket of light that makes the water look like molten bronze. In that lantern light, a man sits with a brush in his hand. His name, in our story, is Mera. He is not writing poetry for the ages. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's doing what countless people do in every era, keeping track of work, counting, noting, recording the rhythm of days because the rhythm matters. And it is comforting, so comforting, to realize that the ancient world was full of this kind of quiet normality. If you have ever made a list to calm your mind, if you have ever written something down so your thoughts could stop carrying it, you understand Mera's impulse. A page can hold weight. A line of ink can become a small shelf for the mind. Mera's diary, preserved across time, offers glimpses of movement, stone being transported, routes being used, schedules unfolding. It is not a blueprint. It does not explain everything, but it does something gentler and, in a way, more intimate. It shows the human scale of a wonder. Tonight, we let that scale soothe us. Picture Mera's day. He rises with the river's breath when the sky is still a soft grey and the horizon is barely visible. He eats something simple, bread perhaps, and a sip of water. He speaks quietly to the crew. They are not heroic in the way movies imagine. They are simply awake and ready and a little tired and used to the feel of work. The boat pushes off. Oars dip. The river receives them without complaint. As they move, the banks slide past like slow scenery in a dream. Palms, reeds, small paths, shapes of homes tucked into darkness. The water carries them steadily, and the morning gradually brightens, not suddenly, but in gentle layers, first a paler sky, then the faint line of the sun, then the soft gold that touches everything. Mera watches. He listens. He feels the practical concerns of the day, weather, timing, distance, supplies. But beneath those concerns is something that feels very familiar to you and me. The desire for things to go smoothly, the hope that the day will be manageable. When you are tired at night, your mind often replays unfinished tasks. It tries to keep control by turning problems over and over. But the river scene offers another way. A day can be guided by rhythm instead of tension. Or pause, inhale, exhale, step, rest. And slowly, progress happens. At some point, the cargo matters. Limestone blocks, pale, heavy, quietly majestic, even before they become part of anything grand. They rest in the boat's belly like sleeping animals. The crew checks ropes and balance. They adjust with small movements. The way you adjust a blanket over your feet at night. Nothing is frantic, nothing is loud. The work is careful because care is efficient. The river does not reward panic. The river rewards steadiness. Mira writes a line, it is likely brief, practical. A note of where they went, what they carried, how long it took. And here, a soft discovery opens, like a door that doesn't creak. The Great Pyramid, so enormous from the outside, was built through days like this, through repeated mornings, through countless small trips, through logistics and labor that were not mystical, but human. The scale is breathtaking, yes, but the method is tender in its repetition. You may feel your eyelids growing heavier. Let them. Now allow the story to drift closer to the water again. Imagine the sound of the boat cutting through the river. A gentle shush, a mild splash, the occasional creak of wood, the low murmur of voices, the rustle of reed leaves. These are the kinds of sounds the nervous system trusts. They are predictable. They do not spike. They do not demand. They create a cradle of rhythm. If you want, you can synchronize your breathing with the imagined oars. Inhale as the oar lifts. Exhale as it dips into the water. Inhale. Exhale. Good. The river leads toward canals and harbors, places where stone can be transferred, moved, guided closer to the plateau. Mera notes it all. The details might feel technical in daylight, but at night they become something else, a lullaby of routine, because routine is restful. In modern life, routine is often framed as boring. But when you are tired and overfull with choices, routine becomes mercy. It becomes the quiet promise that you do not have to invent yourself from scratch every hour. Mira's diary is, in its own way, a hymn to routine. He writes, he sleeps, he wakes, he writes again. And the world, slowly, changes around him, block by block. Sometimes when people imagine the pyramids, they picture a single moment, an order given, a plan unrolled, a miracle completed. But Mira's notes suggest something quieter, a long chain of ordinary agreements. Someone waits at the dock, someone checks the ropes, someone counts the jars of water for the crew, someone walks a narrow path along the canal with sandals full of silt, then returns to the boat, unremarkable and essential. And if you listen closely, you can feel how that kind of ordinariness is soothing. It reminds you that your own life is made the same way, by small actions repeated with gentle consistency. A cup rinsed, a message answered, a light turned off, a door locked, a blanket pulled up. In a world that often praises only the dramatic, Mira's diary praises the steady. It is a small lantern in the dark, and lanterns do not need to be large to be useful. They only need to be lit. So tonight, you are allowed to be small and steady too. You are allowed to rest without a grand conclusion. You are allowed to let the day be unfinished, like a half-written page that can wait for morning. Even the river pauses sometimes, and nothing is lost by that pause at all. Now let the camera of the mind widen. Far from Mira's boat, the plateau waits. The pyramid's core rises slowly, step by step. The air above Giza shimmers in the daytime heat, then cools in the evening. Workers carry, place, align. They drink water. They wipe sweat. They laugh at a small joke. They fall quiet when the sun is strong. And at night, many of them sleep, just as you are preparing to sleep now. That is one of the most calming bridges between past and present, the certainty that humans have always needed rest. Even the builders of great things had to lie down. Even the planners of wonders had to close their eyes. Even the record keepers had to let the brush fall from their fingers and surrender to sleep. So if you have been judging yourself for being tired, let that judgment melt. Tiredness is not failure. It is the body asking for what it has always asked for, a return to stillness. Now in the lantern light, Mera's ink dries. The page holds the day for him. He does not have to hold it in his mind all night. And you can do the same. Imagine your own thoughts as small cargo, boxes, bundles, stones. Imagine placing them gently on the riverboat of this story. The boat will carry them for you. You do not have to grip them. One worry might be a small stone in your palm. Set it down. One plan for tomorrow might be a bundle of rope. Lay it on the deck. One memory might be a heavy jar. Place it carefully and step back. Now your hands are empty. And empty hands are a beginning. Here is a quiet question, asked in a way that won't wake you, only soften you. If you could write one simple line tonight like Mera, what would it be? Not a masterpiece, just a record that allows your mind to rest. Maybe it would be, I did enough. Maybe it would be, I showed up. Maybe it would be, tomorrow can wait. Let the line form in your mind, then let it fade like ink soaking into paper. The river continues. The sky turns darker again, stars return, the boat is tied, the crew lies down on mats or in small shelters, the air cools, the lantern is dimmed, a final ripple touches the shore, then becomes still, and far away the pyramid stands in the darkness, receiving every day's work, without applause, without complaint. That is another gentle lesson. The most enduring things do not hurry you. They simply accept your steady effort. So tonight, accept your own steady effort too. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself, only if you want to, only if it feels good. And don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. Now let your breathing slow even more. Inhale as if you are drawing in the cool river air. Exhale as if you are letting the water carry you. In the next part, we will return to the plateau and look at the pyramid's numbers and alignments, but only through the softest lens, as if we are tracing constellations with a fingertip, not calculating with a sharp mind. For now, let Mera's small, steady lines hold the day for you. The river has gone quiet in our imagination, and so has the lantern. Mera's small lines have settled on the page like a soft layer of dust, useful, calm, finished for the night. And now, as the boat sleeps against the bank, we return slowly to the plateau, where stone meets starlight. If you're still awake, let your attention be gentle. If you're already drifting, let the words be a distant tide. Either way, nothing here will rush you. We are back at Giza. The air has cooled again. The sand, which looked bright in daylight, is now a muted grey-blue, as if the night has brushed it with a soft cloth. And the pyramids, dark triangles against the darker sky, stand as they always do, steady, patient, unbothered. There is a kind of question that often rises in people when they look at these shapes. Not a loud question, more like a quiet itch of curiosity. How did they make it so straight? How did they make it so true? In daytime, that question can become sharp, turning into arguments, measurements, lists. But tonight, we touch it the way you touch the edge of a warm mug, slowly, carefully, without needing to drink it all at once. We let the question soften into an image. Imagine an ancient night like this one. No city glow on the horizon, no distant highways, only the desert's hush, the river's breath far away, and the sky, wide, clean, and intensely present. The stars in that sky are not decoration. They are guidance. They are calendar. They are comfort. They are the oldest kind of map. And if you listen closely, you can feel why the pyramid's shape belongs with the stars. A pyramid is a simple idea, 4 faces rising toward one point, but the simplicity is part of its calm. It is a form the mind can hold without strain, the way it can hold a lullaby's melody without effort. Now let us come nearer to the idea of alignment, but in the gentlest way, like tracing a constellation with your fingertip. Many people have noticed that the Great Pyramid seems to face the cardinal directions with remarkable confidence, its sides oriented toward north, south, east, and west, not as a boast, but as a kind of quiet agreement with the world. Think of that, a building that chooses to stand with the planet's own compass. Tonight, we won't turn this into a lecture. We won't burden your mind with exact angles. Instead, we'll imagine the human scene behind such a choice, because the scene is soothing. Picture a small group of workers or surveyors on a flat patch of ground, long before the first stones rise. The air is still warm from the day, but cooling fast. A few lamps burn low. A rope lies coiled like a sleeping snake. A straight staff is planted in the ground, and above them, the circumpolar stars wheel slowly, never setting, circling the sky's invisible center like a patient thought. They watch, they wait, they mark, they watch again. There is a deep calm in waiting for the sky, because you cannot hurry the stars, you can only meet them. If you have ever sat in your own bedroom waiting for your thoughts to settle, you understand this kind of patience. Sleep cannot be forced. It can only be invited through stillness, through rhythm, through soft repetition. So imagine those ancient surveyors, breathing, listening, letting the heavens guide their hands. They might have used simple methods, sighting between stars, observing shadows at certain times, noting where the sun rises and falls across seasons. Nothing magical in the sense of a trick, but magical in the sense of attention. And in that attention, the pyramid begins, not as stone, but as relationship. Relationship to north, relationship to the river, relationship to the sun, relationship to the long turning sky. Sometimes, when you are tired, your life feels unaligned. Too many obligations pulling in different directions. Too many thoughts tugging at the edges of your mind. But a monument like this offers a gentler image. It is possible to choose a direction and keep it quietly, without struggle, not rigidly, just steadily. Now step closer in your imagination to the pyramid's base. The ground is rough. The air smells like dust and cool rock. And yet the lines, those long, straight edges, hold their intention. A straight line is such a small thing when you think about it. We draw them in notebooks without effort. We see them in roads and window frames. But a straight line stretched across the earth, built from stone, made to last, becomes something else. It becomes a kind of promise. A promise that someone cared enough to make things fit. A promise that the world can hold order. A promise that the mind, even when it feels scattered, can return to calm. If you'd like to deepen that feeling, take a slow breath now. Inhale as if you're gathering the night sky. Exhale as if you're laying that sky gently on your chest like a blanket. Good. Now let's let geometry become poetry for a moment. A pyramid is a meeting of 4 planes. Each plane rises. Each plane leans inward. Each plane gives up a little space so that something can converge. And at the top there is not a wide platform for noise. There is a point. It is a shape that teaches surrender. Not collapse, surrender. A little less outward expansion, a little more inward gathering. In modern life, we often do the opposite. We expand outward. More tabs, more tasks, more messages, more pressure to perform. The mind spreads itself thin across too many directions, but the pyramid silently invites the opposite motion. Gather in, simplify, meet at one quiet point. And what is the quiet point for you tonight? Perhaps it is your breath. Perhaps it is the soft weight of your blanket. Perhaps it is the sound of a fan or distant rain, or the hum of a city far away. Whatever it is, let it become your north, your gentle orientation back to safety, because orientation is soothing. When we know where we are, truly know in the body, we can relax. Now a soft discovery comes, not as a fact to debate, but as a feeling to hold. Even with all the attention to direction, the pyramid is not cold. It is not merely a machine of measurement, it is also a vessel for human longing. People built it under the same sky that holds you tonight. They looked up and felt small. They wanted to place something steady in a world that changes. They wanted a structure that would outlast a single life, perhaps even outlast a name. That desire is not foreign. It lives in you too, in quieter forms. The wish to leave a good memory in someone's heart, the wish to make a home feel safe, the wish to be remembered kindly, the wish to believe that your effort matters. You don't have to be a king to carry that wish. Mira carried it in his careful lines. Kenwaset carried it in his restoration. The workers carried it in their steady hands, and you carry it in the ways you keep going. Now imagine the pyramid not in daylight but in moonlight. The faces become softer, edges blur slightly, the stone seems less like a monument and more like a sleeping animal, breathing in the cool night. The moon slides across the sky and the pyramid's shadow shifts, slowly, so slowly that you could fall asleep before it changes much at all. And that slowness is a balm, because you too are allowed to move slowly tonight. Let the story slow further now, like a boat drifting into calm water. Think of the north that the pyramid faces. It is not a place you can reach by walking on the plateau. It is a direction, an idea, an invisible line that helps you locate yourself on a spinning world. In the same way, your peace is not a single destination. It is a direction you return to. You return to it with breath. You return to it with kindness. You return to it with the decision to stop wrestling the night. If your mind tries to grip a problem right now, you can whisper softly internally, "Not tonight. Tonight I return to my direction." And if you want, ask yourself one more gentle question, the way you might ask a friend. What would it feel like to be aligned with rest? Not perfectly, just enough. Aligned enough to let your muscles soften. Aligned enough to let your thoughts blur at the edges. Aligned enough to let sleep arrive like a quiet guest. Now let's widen our view one more time. From far away, the plateau looks like a dark island in a sea of night. The pyramids are shapes on that island, simple, steady, like stones in a riverbed. The Nile is a darker ribbon beyond, carrying its old stories forward, and above it all, the sky turns. In that turning, something important becomes clear without words. Everything is moving, and yet everything can be calm. The earth spins and you can rest. The stars wheel and you can rest. Time passes and you can rest. You don't have to keep watch. You don't have to hold the world up with your thoughts. Let the pyramid hold its direction. Let the river hold its rhythm. Let the sky hold its slow turning. And let you, just for tonight, hold nothing at all. If you're listening from a busy city, from a small town, from a hospital shift, from a quiet home, know this: you made it here. This corner of night is yours. Let the story keep watch while you drift in peace. In the next part, we will step even farther back into the softer edges of deep time, how knowledge can fade, how skill can change, and how the most beautiful question is sometimes the one that turns from who did it to who kept it and why. For now, rest with the simplest geometry. Inhale, exhale, and the quiet point where you meet the night. Tonight, we don't need to be clever. If your mind has been trained by modern life to chase answers, to solve, to finish, to optimize, let it rest for a while. Let the night do what it has always done, soften edges, quiet sharp corners, and turn everything into something slower and kinder. We are still at Giza, but we are also not only at Giza, because when you stand beside a monument that has watched thousands of years pass, you begin to feel time differently. Time stops being a straight road with deadlines. It becomes more like a sea, tides coming in, tides going out, the same shore touched again and again. So let's step into that sea together barefoot, unhurried. Imagine the plateau long after the Great Pyramid is finished. The workers have gone home. The ceremonies have faded. The last torch has been extinguished. Night after night, the pyramid stands under the stars, and the wind moves over it as gently as breath over sleeping lips. At first, the monument is new in its own way. Its casing stones are smooth and pale, catching sunlight in the day, moonlight at night. It might have looked like a bright mountain, clean lines, crisp edges, a shape that feels almost impossible in its clarity. Then slowly the world changes around it, not suddenly, not with a bang, not with a villain, just slowly. Sand drifts. Storms arrive and leave. Small earthquakes whisper through the ground. Human priorities shift like the river's current. New rulers rise, new temples are built, new stories take the place of old ones. And each time a generation turns, the pyramid remains, but the attention it receives changes. This is the part of history that rarely makes it into documentaries, because it is quiet and long, but quiet and long is exactly what we need tonight, because your own life is quiet and long in many ways too, made of repeated mornings, repeated evenings, repeated little choices that don't feel dramatic, but shape everything. So let the pyramid's long middle years feel familiar to you. Now we move our gaze along the timeline, and we notice a gentle pattern that has intrigued many people. After the Great Pyramid and its close companions, later pyramids, in many cases, seem to shift. Some are smaller, some are built differently, some show changes in technique, in material, in the way the outer surfaces endured. In daylight, this can become a debate, progress or decline, mastery or adaptation, politics or economics. But at night, we don't need to turn it into a courtroom. Instead, we treat it like memory. Have you ever noticed how a family recipe changes over time? The first version might be precise, taught by someone who cooked it 100 times. Later, someone makes it with substitutions. The taste is still good, but different. A little simpler, a little more modern, a little less exact. No one is failing. The recipe is living. Skills can be like that too. They are not only accumulated, they can also fade, shift, or transform depending on what a society values, what it can afford, what it chooses to invest in, and what it chooses to let go. And there is a tenderness in that idea, because it means perfection is not the only story. Change is the story. Continuity is the story. The slow rewriting of human life across time is the story. If you're someone who feels pressure to improve constantly, to never slip, to never forget, to always climb upward, this is a gentle permission. Even civilizations have seasons. Even mastery has tides. Even brilliance can appear early and later become quieter. This isn't tragedy, it's rhythm. Now let's follow the rhythm further back, beyond monuments. Imagine Egypt's long corridor of time not as a series of crowns, but as a series of mornings. A farmer stepping into a field at dawn, a potter smoothing clay with wet hands, a child chasing a bird along the riverbank, a woman grinding grain while the household wakes, a boatman pushing off into a silver river. These are the scenes that truly hold a civilization. Kings come and go, but bread is baked every day. Water is carried every day. People find shade every day. People lie down and sleep every night. And when you remember that, the pyramids feel less like an alien object and more like an extreme expression of something ordinary. Human beings trying to place meaning into time. Now a soft discovery returns, the one we have been quietly carrying. The Great Pyramid may be less about a single era of genius and more about a long chain of care, because a monument does not merely survive by being built. It survives by being tolerated, respected, repaired, and protected again and again by people who did not build it. A few centuries pass, then 1,000 years. The pyramid becomes ancient even to those who live in its shadow. Sand piles up, stones loosen. The casing is quarried away in later times. Parts of the smooth outer skin vanish. The monument changes shape, not in its core idea, but in its texture. And still it stands. In your own life, you may have parts of you that feel quarried away too, plans you once held tightly, beliefs that changed, relationships that shifted, energy that is not as bright as it once was. That doesn't mean your core is gone. It means life has touched you. It means time has had its hand on you, and you're still here. That is endurance. Now step with me into a later age in our imagination, an age when the pyramid is not a new mountain, but an old one, worn and revered. People come to it with different intentions. Some come to admire, some come to pray, some come to measure, some come to take stones, because stones are useful and the past is easy to borrow from when you're building the present. And among those intentions, the caretaker's intention appears again, like a candle protected from wind. Someone chooses preservation. Okay, we've met this feeling in Kenwaset's Dawn Brush, and we can meet it again as a broader human habit, the habit of keeping. Keeping is not glamorous, it is not always rewarded. It often happens quietly, without audience, but it is one of the most loving things a society can do, and it is one of the most loving things a person can do. If you have ever maintained something, your health, your home, your relationships, your small routines, you know the invisible effort of keeping. You know that what looks stable from the outside is often a result of many small, unseen repairs. So tonight, when you picture the pyramid, picture it not only as a marvel of building, but as a marvel of maintenance across time. Now let's allow another thought to arrive, one that feels like a soft blanket on the mind. In modern life, we often treat knowledge as something we own. We store it in devices, we search it on demand, we expect instructions, we expect documentation, we expect that the how will be written down somewhere ready when we want it. But ancient knowledge was different. It lived in bodies. It lived in apprenticeships. It lived in hands that learned through repetition and teachers who corrected gently. It lived in songs sung during work. It lived in the feel of stone under a chisel. When that chain breaks, the knowledge can vanish without drama, not stolen, not destroyed, simply not passed on. And that might be why the pyramid feels surrounded by a certain silence. The full method may have been known, deeply, intimately, and then quietly lost, like a tune no one sang anymore. If that idea makes you sad, let it soften into something else, a reminder to keep what matters close. Keep the habits that calm you, keep the words that heal you, keep the people who bring warmth, keep the small rituals that steady your mind at night, because memory, like stone, needs care. Now we return to the plateau again, under stars. The pyramid's outline is steady. The Sphinx rests in its half-sleeping posture. Cairo's distant lights are a low glow beyond the desert's edge. And somewhere in the wide dark, the Nile keeps moving, carrying silt and stories, carrying tomorrow gently toward morning. Let's sit here for a while in the story's quiet. If you want, ask yourself a question that doesn't demand a solution, only a feeling. What do you want to preserve inside yourself this year? Not achieve, not prove, preserve. Maybe it's patience, maybe it's kindness, maybe it's a calm routine, maybe it's your sleep protected like a small flame. Let the answer be vague if it wants to be. Vague answers are gentle. They leave room to breathe. Now we allow a final soft turn for this part, like a slow camera pullback. From high above, the plateau becomes a quiet shape. The pyramids become 3 dark triangles. The city becomes a soft haze. The river becomes a thin ribbon. The desert becomes a wide, quiet ocean of earth. And you, listening from your own room, become part of this same picture, a small, warm being under a turning sky, allowed to rest. You don't have to carry the whole past. You don't have to solve the whole puzzle. You only have to breathe. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop insisting on certainty. Let the questions sit like stones on warm sand. Let them cool. Let them wait. In the morning, they may look smaller or softer or simply less urgent. Tonight, your only job is to be gently alive for a while. In the next part, we will return to a single, tender detail, the feeling of stone fitted so closely that light can barely pass, and what that kind of care can teach a modern, overworked mind about gentleness and precision without strain. For now, let time be a sea, and let your thoughts be boats that drift, not boats that race. Inhale, exhale, and let the pyramid keep watch while you sleep. Let us return to the simplest miracle of all, 2 stones meeting. If you are still awake, you may feel the night settling in your limbs, the way a lake settles when the wind quiets. If you are already half asleep, then let these words drift like slow sand across your thoughts. You don't have to hold anything tightly. We are back at the Great Pyramid's base, where the air is cooler, where the desert feels like a wide, quiet room, and where the stone waits without impatience. The stars overhead are steady, Cairo's glow is distant, the plateau is a soft expanse of shadow and breath, and here, close to the ground, the pyramid offers a detail that does not shout, yet it has held people's attention for generations. A seam, a line where one block touches another. It is such a small thing, really, a meeting point, a boundary, a quiet agreement. And yet, when you stand beside it, when you imagine your fingertips tracing that join, you can feel how much care lives in something so ordinary. Tonight, we will stay with that care. Imagine kneeling near the lowest stones where a few remnants of smoother casing still catch the faintest glow. The limestone there feels cooler than the air, as if it is holding a pocket of night inside it. Your palm rests on the surface. It is not icy, it is calm. It feels like a steady hand placed on a restless mind. Now bring your attention to the join between stones. There is no dramatic gap. There is not a jagged crack that pulls you into worry. The line is quiet, so quiet that the mind has to soften in order to notice it. This is an ASMR of architecture, the softness of precision. You might imagine sliding a fingertip along the seam. The stone does not snag, it does not resist. It simply continues block to block like a phrase that has been spoken carefully. And in that moment, an unusual kind of comfort appears, because most of modern life is full of rough edges, a harsh email, a sharp headline, a noisy room, a schedule that corners you, a thought that spins too fast. We live among seams that catch, seams that tear, seams that rub the skin raw. So what happens in the body when you meet a seam that does not hurt? Something unclenches. You don't always realize how much tension you're carrying until you touch smoothness. The pyramid stones, fitted with such patience, offer smoothness not as decoration, but as a quiet environment. And environments shape the nervous system. If you want, take a long, gentle breath now. Inhale as if you are drawing in cool limestone air. Exhale as if you are letting your shoulders melt into the sand. Good. Now, let the story widen to the people behind the seam, not kings in golden light, not myths, not villains or heroes, just workers, planners, masons, humans whose hands learned the feel of rock the way your hands have learned the feel of keys, of fabric, of cups and door handles. Picture them at dawn before the heat arrives. The plateau is pale and quiet. The river's breath is far away, the air is clean, and the sky is a soft, washed blue. Men and women move with steady purpose. Tools are lifted, ropes are checked, stones are guided into place with careful voices. There is no need for dramatic music. The rhythm is enough. A stone is lowered, it settles, someone listens, yes, listens to how it sits. A small adjustment is made, a wedge is tapped, a line is checked, another adjustment, then stillness. Stone is patient, but it also demands patience. You cannot rush it without consequence. So the builder's pace becomes the pace of the material, slow, exact, gentle. In that slowness, you can feel an echo of something you might need tonight, because sleep is like stone. It cannot be bullied. It cannot be yanked into place. It comes when the body feels safe, when the edges are smooth, when the environment is steady. So, in a way, the pyramid is not only an achievement of engineering, it is a lesson in how to invite steadiness. Now, some people say, with a kind of hushed awe, that certain joints feel as if they were made to hold light itself, so narrow that even brightness struggles to enter. Whether that is exactly true in every place is less important tonight than the image it creates. Light pauses at the seam. Imagine that, light which usually spills everywhere, stopping at a tiny boundary because the stones meet so closely. It's a poetic thought, and poetry is allowed here. Poetry is gentle, and if light can pause, so can you. You can pause at the seam between today and tomorrow. You can pause at the seam between what you did and what you wish you had done. You can pause at the seam between your worry and your rest. You do not have to cross every boundary tonight. You can simply stop at the edge and breathe. Now let us move inside again, but only for a moment, as if we are stepping into the pyramid's cool shadow to feel the contrast. The passageways are narrower than the open plateau. The air is still. The sound is soft. Even your imagined breath seems louder here, as if the stone is holding it gently. You might picture the faint warmth of your own body against the coolness of rock, and notice how soothing that contrast can be. Somewhere inside, the stones meet again and again, seam after seam, forming a corridor that is not only physical but emotional, a corridor that guides the mind away from noise and toward simplicity. And simplicity is healing. Back outside, the wind moves lightly. A grain of sand skitters, then settles. A star shifts by a fraction you cannot feel. The pyramid remains, but it feels different now, less like a riddle, more like a companion. Now we let a soft discovery arrive, not as a sensational claim, but as a change of question. Instead of asking, who did this? Or how did they do it? We can ask, what kind of mind does this create? Because a seam that is smooth creates a different state in the body than a seam that is rough. A corridor that is calm invites a different breath than a corridor that is crowded. A monument that stands in silence invites a different kind of thought than a screen that flashes. Perhaps the pyramid was not only built to impress the living, but to calm them too. Perhaps it was built to teach the nervous system a longer rhythm. The rhythm of stone, the rhythm of stars, the rhythm of a river that rises and falls without panic. That is a twist so gentle it barely feels like a twist at all. It feels like an exhale. If you are listening in a busy American life, surrounded by traffic, deadlines, and constant alerts, imagine giving your mind one smooth seam to touch tonight. It could be a real sensation, the softness of your pillowcase, the weight of your blanket, the cool side of the sheet. It could be a sound, a fan, a distant rain track, the hush of a home at night. It could be a thought. I am safe enough to rest. Choose one seam, one smooth point, one small place where the mind doesn't catch. Now return with me to the plateau again, and let us see the pyramid as a silhouette. From a distance you cannot see the seams, you only see the shape. And that too is comforting, because in life we often judge ourselves from too close. We stare at the gaps, the mistakes, the places where our effort wasn't perfect. We measure ourselves at fingertip distance, noticing every flaw. But the night offers a wider view. From far enough away, what remains is the overall shape, your endurance, your care, your steady effort, your desire to be kind. Maybe you are not as broken as you feel when you look too closely. Maybe, from a kinder distance, you are simply human, shaped by weather and time, still standing. Let that thought land softly. Now imagine one more tactile detail, a small ritual. You place your hand on the stone again. You feel the coolness. You feel the steadiness. And in your mind, you let a worry slide out of your hand and into the seam between stones, as if the pyramid can hold it for you for the night. Not forever, just until morning. The pyramid has carried much heavier things than your worry: sand, heat, centuries, silence. It can hold your small burden without effort. Take another slow inhale. Let the inhale be quiet. Let the exhale be longer, as if you are smoothing a sheet across a bed. And if you'd like a gentle question to carry you closer to sleep, here it is. When was the last time you touched something steady? It might have been a tree trunk, a stone wall, a kitchen counter, a loved one's hand, the edge of a book, the handle of a mug, the ground beneath your feet. Whatever it was, let the memory return. Let it warm you. Let it soothe you, because steadiness is not rare. It is everywhere when you know how to feel it. And remember, in this quiet corner of the night, you are not listening alone. Somewhere, someone else is also lowering their shoulders, also letting the day dissolve. Every calm story from the past is a small lantern shared between strangers. If you want, leave a gentle comment for yourself, just one kind sentence, and let it be your own smooth seam. In the next part, we will let the story drift into the quietest kind of philosophy. How some truths are meant to be lived beside, not solved, and how the pyramid's silence can teach a tired mind the mercy of unfinished answers. For now, rest at the seam where light pauses. Inhale. Exhale. Tonight you don't have to finish anything. If the day left tasks half done, if conversations ended without closure, if your mind is still holding a few open loops like loose threads, you can set them down here. Not forever, just for this quiet stretch of night where the world is dimmer and kinder. We are still at Giza in our imagination, but we are also somewhere simpler than any place you could point to on a map. We are in that soft space between questions and answers where your body can finally stop bracing. Take a slow breath in, as if you're drawing in the coolness of limestone, and breathe out, as if you're exhaling the last bright glare of the day. Good. From the plateau, the Great Pyramid is a dark triangle against a dark sky. Its edges are gentle now, softened by moonlight. The stone does not demand interpretation. It does not ask you to be brilliant. It simply exists, steady and quiet, like a thought you can lean on without effort. In daylight, people come here with arguments. They arrive carrying measurements and theories. They speak loudly even when they claim to be respectful. They want the monument to answer them, to validate them, to prove something. But the pyramid has lived long enough to refuse that game. It offers something else. It offers a silence that is not empty, but full of time, full of weather, full of the steady presence of stone fitted to stone. It is the kind of silence that makes your shoulders drop a little because your nervous system recognizes that nothing is hunting you here. If you'd like, imagine sitting on the sand a short distance away where you can see the pyramid clearly but don't feel the need to stand at its base. You sit the way you sit at the end of a long day when you finally admit you're tired. You let the desert hold you. You let the night air touch your face. You let the sky be wide above you. And in that stillness, a gentle truth rises. Some questions are meant to remain open, not because we are lazy, not because we don't care, but because the open question can be a doorway into humility, and humility is one of the most restful states a mind can enter. When you stop insisting that you must know everything, something loosens in you. The chest softens, the jaw unclenches, the mind becomes less like a clenched fist and more like an open palm. The pyramid, in its quiet, seems to understand this. It holds its story without rushing to tell it all. It allows the modern mind to practice a rare skill, being near mystery without turning it into panic. If you've ever lain awake at night trying to solve your life like a math problem, you know the opposite of that skill. You know what it feels like to scroll through memories, rearrange plans, rehearse conversations, and hunt for the perfect next step. But the pyramid teaches a gentler approach. It says, without words, you can stop hunting. You can sit beside the unknown. You can let the night be incomplete. Imagine the builders again, not in a dramatic montage, but in a quiet human scene. A worker wipes sweat from his brow with the back of his wrist. Another adjusts a rope. Someone carries water. Someone laughs softly at a small joke that doesn't need to be repeated for history. Someone looks up at the sky and feels small for a moment, then returns to the task. They did not know the future. They did not know how many generations would come after them, measuring and arguing and wondering. They did not know that you would be here, listening in another century on another continent, holding their monument in your mind like a lullaby. They simply did what humans do when they care. They built, they rested, they returned, they built again. And in that rhythm there is a lesson that can soften your night. You don't need perfect knowledge to live steadily. You only need the next gentle step. And if your mind asks for proof, you can answer with sensation instead. Feel the weight of your blanket. Feel the slow pulse in your wrist. Hear the small sounds in your room. Hear the soft hum of a fan, a distant car, the quiet settling of the house. These are your landmarks tonight. They don't explain the world, but they remind your body it is here, now, and safe enough to let the thinking fade. Nothing else needs your attention right now. And sometimes knowledge itself is tender. It lives in hands and habits, in mentors and apprentices, in small corrections made at the right moment. When the chain breaks, the method can fade without drama, like a song no one sings anymore. This is not meant to make you sad tonight. It is meant to make you kinder. Life is fragile, and that fragility makes care meaningful. The pyramid is proof that careful work can outlast noisy years. If you've been feeling fragile lately, let that comfort you. Endurance is not always loud. It is often quiet. It is showing up again gently when you can. It is turning off the light even when your mind is buzzing. It is taking one slow breath even when you feel restless. Now let's return to the seam where light seemed to pause. If a seam can be smooth, then a transition can be smooth too. The transition between day and night, between effort and rest, between the part of you that worries and the part of you that sleeps. Tonight, we are moving through that transition. You do not have to leap. You can slide the way sand slides under a gentle wind. And here comes another soft thought, like a warm cloth placed over the forehead. Your life does not need to be solved tonight. The mind loves the fantasy that if it thinks hard enough, it can prevent pain. But life is weather. Life is river current. Life is a sky that changes its color without asking. When you stop fighting that, what often arrives is relief. Not the relief of answers, but the relief of no longer needing them right now. If you want to practice that relief, try a small ritual with me. In your imagination, pick up a question you've been carrying. It could be big or small. Hold it gently like a smooth stone. Now walk over to the pyramid's base. Find a quiet seam between two blocks and place the question there as if you're tucking it into a safe shelf. You are not throwing it away, you are placing it down. And as you step back, feel how your hand becomes lighter. Your shoulders become lighter. Your breath becomes a little easier. The pyramid will not answer the question, and it doesn't need to. Its job tonight is simply to hold it for you while you sleep. Now let us sit again at a distance where the pyramid is a shape rather than a texture. From here, details blur, arguments blur, the monument becomes pure geometry, a calm triangle under calm stars. And you might notice something important about distance. Distance is mercy. When you step back from your thoughts, they become less sharp. When you step back from a problem, it becomes less personal. When you step back from your own mistakes, you can see your effort with more kindness. So tonight, we step back. We let ourselves be small. We let the pyramid be large. We let the sky be larger still. And in that scale, your worries do not vanish, but they soften. They become like small stones on a wide beach, real, present, but no longer cutting into your palm. Imagine the stars turning above the pyramid, slow, slow, so slow that you could sleep through their movement and nothing would be harmed. This is the gift of deep time. It teaches you that the world can continue even when you pause. So pause. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Let the room you are in, your real room, become part of this story. The bed becomes a small boat. The blanket becomes a soft sail. The sound of your home becomes the night wind. And if you want a gentle interactive moment, here it is. If this story brought you calm, what is one kind sentence you can offer yourself right now? It can be simple. I did enough. I'm allowed to rest. Tomorrow can wait. Even if you don't believe the sentence fully, let it sit on your tongue like a warm sip of tea. Kind sentences are not always instant truth. Sometimes they are seeds. Now return once more to the caretaker, brushing sand away at dawn. That image is what we're doing tonight. We are brushing the day away, grain by grain. We are clearing a small space inside ourselves where calm can reappear. We are not fixing the entire world. We are simply preserving a quiet corner. And that is enough. If your mind tries to pull you back into analysis, you can answer it softly. Not tonight. Tonight we preserve. Tonight we breathe. Tonight we let the pyramid be unsolved, because unsolved does not mean unsafe. Unfinished does not mean failure. Unanswered does not mean unworthy. Sometimes the most peaceful thing is to leave the question on the shelf and turn out the light. So imagine the plateau now as you drift away from it. You walk slowly, leaving the pyramid behind, not with urgency but with trust. The triangle becomes smaller, the city lights become a faint haze, the stars remain, and in your own room your breath continues, steady and quiet. Inhale, exhale. In the next part, we will let the story descend gently into the deepest quiet, where even the desire to understand becomes unnecessary, and sleep can arrive like a soft tide over the shore. For now, let the mercy of unfinished answers cover you like night. Tonight, we go even softer. If your thoughts are still stirring, let them stir like leaves on slow water, moving, but not going anywhere urgent. If your eyelids are heavy, let them be heavy. The story will keep its lantern low, and you can follow it with the part of you that listens without effort. In our imagination, the plateau is quieter now, as if the whole desert has taken a long breath and decided to hold it. The pyramids are still there, but they feel farther away, not because we are leaving them, but because we are drifting inward into the place where sleep begins. The sky above Giza is a deep, patient blue-black. The stars are not sharp points, they are gentle presences. They don't sparkle like celebration, they glow like reassurance. And somewhere behind the horizon, the world is turning slowly without asking you to supervise it. This is the kind of thought that can loosen the mind. The world knows how to continue. You don't have to keep watch tonight, you don't have to keep solving, you don't have to keep the day upright with your attention. Imagine for a moment that your worries are like small lamps you've been holding. All day you carried them because you thought you needed the light. But now you can set them down. The desert has enough darkness for your eyes to rest. The night is not a problem. The night is a blanket. So we sit again at a gentle distance from the Great Pyramid, where we can see its shape without needing to touch its stone. The triangle is simple, the triangle is steady, it looks almost like a quiet symbol drawn on the sky. And as we look, something in the body starts to imitate what it sees: steadiness. Your breath slows a fraction, your shoulders drop a fraction, the muscles around the eyes soften. If you'd like a small practice, do it with me now, very lightly. Inhale, not too big. Exhale, a little longer than the inhale. Again, inhale and exhale. One more time, inhale and exhale. Good. Now let the story shift from questions to sensations. The desert air is cool. The sand is a muted softness beneath you. The stone under the pyramid has stored the day's heat and is letting it go slowly, like a body relaxing into sleep. There is an old kind of calm here, the calm of materials that do not panic. Stone does not worry about tomorrow. Sand does not rehearse yesterday. The river does not argue with its own current. The sky does not struggle to be worthy of the stars. They simply do what they are. And that is why the pyramid can feel healing. Not because it answers you, but because it does not demand anything from you. It offers a place where existence is enough. If you have been feeling like you must earn your rest, let this be your permission. You do not have to earn the right to sleep. Sleep is not a reward. Sleep is a return to your body, a return to quiet, a return to the simple rhythm that carried every human being who ever lived beneath these stars. Imagine the builders again, but not at work. Imagine them at night, after the heat, after the lifting, after the counting of stones and the carrying of water. Imagine them lying down, faces turned toward a darkening sky. Some might sleep in small shelters, some might sleep in the open air, wrapped in simple cloth, listening to the desert wind. Their minds, too, must have wandered at night. Their hearts, too, must have held worry at times. And still, sleep came to them, because the body insists on its own mercy. This is one of the kindest truths of being human. Your body wants to help you. Even when your mind is loud, your body is quietly trying to return you to rest. Your breath is always offering you a way back. So let your breath be your guide. And as you breathe, let the pyramid silence become a soft companion, like someone sitting beside you without needing to talk. There is a kind of friendship like that in the world. The best kind sometimes, the kind that doesn't try to fix you, the kind that simply stays. If tonight you feel lonely, remember this: you are not resting alone. Somewhere, in another room, in another city, someone else is listening to a soft story, trying to quiet their mind. Every listener is a small light, and together we make a warmer night. Here, no one rests alone. Now we let the plateau drift farther away, like a landscape seen from a slowly moving train. The pyramid becomes smaller in your mind's eye, but the feeling it gave you remains steady, calm, patient. And we begin to understand something that is not an argument, but a lullaby. The pyramid's greatest power is not mystery. It is pace. It is the pace of deep time. It is the pace of stone. It is the pace of a river that does not rush. When you align your breath with that pace, your mind begins to settle, the way dust settles when the room stops moving. So let's align again, gently. Inhale, exhale. Imagine the exhale as a long road down into softness, not a falling, not a collapse, just a descent into comfort, the way you sink into a pillow. Now the story becomes simpler still. You don't have to picture every detail of Giza anymore. You can let the images blur. The plateau is now a feeling, openness. The pyramid is now a feeling, steadiness. The stars are now a feeling, spaciousness. And your bed, your room, your real present night becomes the center of this calm. Notice the weight of your blanket. Notice the warmth of your own body. Notice how the air touches your skin. Cool in some places, warm in others. You may hear a distant sound, traffic, a neighbor, a refrigerator, a fan. Let it be part of the story. In ancient Egypt, there were sounds too: waterbirds, wind, distant voices, the soft creak of wood on riverboats. Night has always had a soundtrack. You don't need perfect silence to sleep, you only need permission. Some people, when they hear ancient, imagine something far away from their own life. But ancient is also the way your body knows how to breathe. Ancient is the way your heart keeps time. Ancient is the way your eyes soften when the room grows dim. So if your mind tries to convince you that you are behind, that you are late, that you are not doing enough, let the plateau answer with a quieter clock. Up there, the stars turn at a pace that does not judge you. Down here, the sand receives every footprint without complaint. And inside you, your breath keeps returning, faithful, even when you forget to notice it. Imagine the museum again, the cool galleries, the glass cases, the calm lighting. A polished statue of dark stone stands in a pool of gentle light, not demanding anything. It is simply present, like a reminder that human beings have always wanted steadiness, always wanted something to lean on. Then imagine stepping back into the open night, feeling the relief of space. Your thoughts can do that too. You don't have to stay trapped in the tight hallway of overthinking. If a thought comes, let it be one visitor in a wide desert, not a crowd. If a memory comes, let it be one star, not the whole sky. Choose one worry, just one, and imagine placing it on a shelf in the pyramid's shadow, like a book returned to its place. The shelf can hold it until morning. You do not have to hold it with your muscles. And if you'd like another gentle question, one that guides you towards sleep instead of away from it, what would it feel like to wake up tomorrow with a softer mind? You don't need the whole plan. You don't need the whole solution. You only need the feeling, lighter, quieter, steadier. Let that feeling drift into you, the way cool air drifts through an open window. And if you want, offer yourself one kind sentence, the way you would to a tired friend. It's okay to rest. Let the night hold that sentence until sleep arrives. So we give you permission. If there is something you didn't finish today, it can wait. If there is someone you didn't please, it can wait. If there is a version of you that you wish you had been, it can wait. Tonight you are enough as you are. And now a final soft discovery for this part arrives. Not about stone, but about you. You are not meant to carry the past like a heavy sarcophagus. You are meant to let it rest where it belongs. The pyramid holds its own past. The desert holds its own past. The river holds its own past. And you can let your day become part of the past too, quietly, without ceremony. Imagine placing your day on the sand. Not in a messy pile, not in shame, just setting it down the way you set down shoes at the door. The day has done its job. Now you can come inside your own rest. If you want a gentle sentence to repeat as you drift, here is one you can carry like a small lantern. I am allowed to let go. Repeat it silently with the next exhale. I am allowed to let go. And again, softer. I am allowed to let go. Now the pyramid is far away, but its gift remains. A long, steady quiet that makes room for sleep. In the next part, we will not add new questions. We will only gather the story into a final warm blanket, bringing you back to the present and letting the night close gently like a door that does not click. For now, let the long exhale of the earth become your own. Inhale, exhale. Now we come to the quiet, closing, softly, as if we are pulling a blanket higher and smoothing it once across the chest. If you are still awake, you do not have to try to fall asleep. If you are already half dreaming, you do not have to try to listen. You can simply be here in the gentle dimness, where the story is a low lamp and nothing is urgent. In our imagination, Giza rests under the stars one last time. The plateau is wide and calm, the sand is cool, the wind is slow, the pyramids are silhouettes, dark triangles drawn on the night like simple, steady thoughts. The Nile is somewhere beyond the desert edge, moving quietly, carrying silt and moonlight, carrying tomorrow toward morning the way it always has. And the sky, so large, so patient, turns without asking you to keep track. If you remember nothing else from tonight, remember this feeling. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to stop solving. You are allowed to leave some questions open. You are allowed to let the day become yesterday, because the world is still here when you pause. The river still moves, the stars still turn, the pyramid still stands. Nothing is harmed by your sleep. Now let the images gather into a softer kind of meaning, one that doesn't ask your mind to work. We began with stone, cool, steady, patient. We touched the seam where light seems to pause. We walked the cool corridors where breath becomes the loudest sound. We followed a boat on the Nile where a working man wrote small lines so his mind could rest. We watched a caretaker brush sand away at dawn, not to claim the past, but to keep it. And through all of that, one quiet lesson repeated itself like a lullaby. The most beautiful things often arrive in silence, not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of safety. The silence that says you do not have to perform, the silence that lets the body return to its oldest rhythm. Inhale, exhale. Now we return fully to you here, in your real room, in your real night. Notice the weight beneath you, the bed supporting your back, your hips, your shoulders. Notice how the blanket rests, how it doesn't demand anything, how it simply stays where it is placed. Notice the air, cooler at the edges of the room, warmer near your skin. Notice the small sounds that belong to your night, perhaps a fan, a distant car, the quiet settling of a home. Let those sounds become your modern Nile, moving gently in the background. And if a thought tries to rise about tomorrow, about something unfinished, you can respond as softly as the desert wind. Not now, not tonight. Tonight, I rest, because rest is not weakness. Rest is repair. If you are someone who spends your days carrying responsibilities, family, work, expectations, imagine placing them down the way Mira placed his day onto papyrus. Imagine the paper receiving the weight so your mind can be lighter. Imagine the pyramid receiving the question, holding it safely in a seam until morning. You don't have to throw anything away. You only have to set it down. Now let's take one final slow breath together. Inhale, as if you're drawing in the calm of deep time. Exhale, as if you're letting the day dissolve into sand. Again, inhale, exhale, and one more. Inhale, exhale. Good. Now, the story gives you a gentle community touch, like a warm note left on the table. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Just one kind sentence. And don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Sometimes a memory, spoken softly, becomes a lantern not only for you but for someone else listening in the dark. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. Now, let the final images be simple. From far away, the Great Pyramid becomes a single dark triangle under stars. It grows smaller and smaller as we drift back. The plateau becomes a quiet shadow. The city becomes a faint glow. The river becomes a thin ribbon. And then even those shapes fade. What remains is only breath. Inhale, exhale. If you want a final phrase to carry you into sleep, let it be this: soft, slow, and true. You are safe enough to rest. Say it silently on the exhale. You are safe enough to rest. And again, even softer. You are safe enough to rest. Now nothing more is required. No more questions. No more searching. Just the slow turning of the earth and you returning to sleep.